Welcome back to another episode of Offbeat Adventures. We're standing here once again on the grade of the former Canadian Northern Railway and later Canadian National Railways, Dorion, and then subsequently Kinghorn Subdivision. We are on the grade here just north of what is known as Orient Bay Station, which is right over there, here in the municipality of Greenstone, Ontario. We're right at the joint part, or the narrow part. So this area here is a bay of Lake Nipigon called Pidgeotawabik Bay, and to the south we're going to be traveling alongside something called Orient Bay. And so what we're doing is we're picking up right where we left off on a previous hike. So we were here on Saturday. Today is Tuesday, so today is the 17th of May. It's a beautiful day. There's a lot of sun. It's just chilly. So when we were here on Saturday, it was very warm. It was actually very hot. It got up to like 24-25 degrees. Today we might get up to like 12-14. There's a very cool north wind, and so thankfully we're heading south, and so that might spare us a little bit, because coming north it was a little on the chilly side. All right, so as I mentioned, we're right at Orient Bay Station, and so this is actually the beginning of the siding here at Orient Bay. Orient Bay was one of the major stations on this line, because basically it was halfway in between the origin spot on the original line. So Jellicoe, from 1915 until 1960, Jellicoe was kind of the beginning of this line, so Orient Bay is halfway in between Jellicoe and Nipigon, which is kind of the halfway point of the line. So this is kind of like the quarter point of the line. So basically 25% of the line here. So this was kind of one of the major stations on here. So we're kind of, the ballast is really bad here, and so we're just kind of skirting in between the line and the siding here. This is probably going to be one of our busiest hikes that we've ever done. It is crazy, insane, the amount of stuff that we have to look at. It just starts right off the hop here. The last little bit isn't as busy, but the beginning part and the middle part there's a lot to take a look at, and it just starts right off the hop here. This is a redo, and so we did this section back in July of 2020, so just under 2 years ago. And so the action starts right here. And so I'm going to try to kind of give you the lay of the land here, because again, there's a lot going on, and it's not just right here on the railway grade. There's something that is railway related that's over there as well. So what we have here is a motor car shed, and so these were used in days past. So some of you might be familiar with the old motor cars that they used to use to travel up and down the line. Here you can see some remnants. You can see some spikes and some rail connector or fish plate bolts. Here's a piece of pipe. So this one here, these pipes, we're going to see a bunch of these. Somebody had told me, thanks to John for this, that these may have been old boiler pipes from locomotives, and you can see what they've done is they hammered them flat, and they used to use these for signs before they adopted the more modern sort of galvanized metal posts. So this is the little motor car shed, and as I was saying, motor cars were used to patrol the lines, and you can actually see some of the remnants of that. You can actually see the rails here where they would have brought the motor car in and stored it. So you can actually see that. That's really neat to see. You can see all the spikes, all the garbage that's in here. So if you're ever interested, I'm going to put up a link in description. I'm going to have to post a little thing that's going to come up on the screen. If you ever want to watch a little video about motor cars, there's a very famous one that was done by the National Film Board in the 1960s, and it stars Buster Keaton, the very famous sort of silent Hollywood actor, and it basically is about him going coast to coast on a motor car, and it's all silent. So it's really neat to see. It's all kind of Buster Keatonish, very sight gags and things like that. Now, what else is happening here besides the motor car shed? I'm going to show you a map here for a second here. So my CN profile map, and you're going to see some of the stuff that's happening in the area. So I'm not 100% certain, but somewhere here was the water tank. So there was a water tank. I've looked all over the place for it. I don't see any remains of it. There is, and again, there's spikes and stuff like that, all kind of hydraulic fluid. There is this kind of depression in the ground here. I don't know, I've looked around. It should be here. Now, the reason why I say it should be here, if you go to my website, there's a link in the description here. So my page on Orient Bay, and what you're going to find is, it's not a great picture, so I'm not going to post it, but I do have a picture that was taken with the station still in it, and it's kind of taken from that perspective over there, and I'm going to show you that after, kind of looking back this way. And so what you see in the picture is, you see the station, you see the 2 section houses used to be here, and you see the water tank right about here. So now let me zoom in on my GPS here so I know what I'm talking about. So there is some stuff in the brush over there, and so we're going to pause for a second here. I'm going to take you in the brush and take a look at that. All right, so we're just a little ways in from the grade behind where the motor car shed was, and what we have here is, we actually have some structures that are still standing. These are visible on my CN profile map. I'm not sure what some of them are. This is maybe a commode, the bathroom, the outhouse. And this one here, I think it says on there, I have marked on my GPS bunkhouse, but looks really small. And there's all kinds of stuff stored in there. So again, this may have been abandoned for a long time by CN, and this might have been used by the lodge people. You'll notice that there's a bunch of headboards and parts of beds and things like that, and so maybe this was moved here, and maybe there was a bunkhouse originally here, because this looks like a little tool. There's one by McCaskill, it looks like this, and it's a shed. It's literally a tool shed, not a bunkhouse. And so here you can see another structure here. You can see a looks like another outhouse. This is an old bottle. Wow, this is old. This is broken, but it's Javex bleach. So that is that's old. I don't want to wander around here too much because it's a little on the sort of sketchy side. I don't know what I'm stepping on. And here you can see pieces of beds. And here, these are all the parts of the telegraph poles. You can see some of the Armstrong insulators on there. You can see a peg, wooden peg there. I don't know if there's anything else sort of around here. There's metal and there's wood. That's why I want to be careful where I'm stepping, because I don't want to step on a nail or something. You can see that there's barrels. Generally a lot of junk and stuff lying all over the place. You can see here that this looks like there's barrels, and this looks like a sink. Part of a sink here. Okay, so we're going to head our way over to the grade and just move a little bit closer to, a little farther south, a little bit closer to the lodge. All right, so now, one of the other things you'll find on my website, and I'll put a link for that in the description, is you'll find a link to a Google Streetview that was taken in 2009. And what's neat about that is you'll still see the rails in place, and you'll still see some of the structures. So around about here somewhere was one of the 2 section houses. You can see there's a big pile of debris and things like that, but right about here there was a section house. And you can see it plain as day. It's this bright red color, the same bright red colors you see the buildings in there. I looked around, I don't really see any sort of foundations. There's a pipe that's sticking up out of the ground here. So I think it was right in this spot right here somewhere was this section house. So there were 2 section houses. So there's one here and there's one further up. And again, you can see that on that 2009 Google Street View, and again you can see that on that photograph that I have. All right, again, like I said, there's a lot of stuff going on here. And so here you can see the milepost marker. So one of the ones that's still standing. Actually, we're going to see lots of milepost markers on this section here. So you can see it's milepost 91. So that is the mileage on the Kinghorn line. And so for the original lines, which we'll talk about shortly, the mileage, you have to subtract 49.7, as we already indicated. Those lines started in Jellicoe, not Long Lac. So the mileage would be 41.3. 41.3. So we're just going to take a quick little look over here. Again, this is, I'm going to talk more about this here, but this is a private property here, so I don't want to sort of dig into here. And there's like thorn bushes everywhere, so it's not nice to walk through here. And I'm like cringing because I don't want to get like poked by anything. So again, one section house over there, and then there was a section house over here somewhere. Like, I hate this. Then I end up with like thorns in my legs. Yeah, this is awful. And it's not easy to get out of here. Oh my God. Oh, this is just terrible. This is just like thorns and thorns and thorns. God. The poor dog, she's following me. I hope that's not bothering her too much. Oh, that was awful. So around about here somewhere was the other section house. And if you take a look at that 2009 Google Streetview, you will see the fiber block junction, so 91.03. You will also see right here, you'll see a, you see this little pad here. And so you'll see one of the little bungalows. You do have a power meter there. I'm guessing that's what it's for. Little bungalow here. So one of those little metal structures. And then the other section house was right about here somewhere. And again, they were still here as of 2009 along with the rails, and they were torn down around about the time that the rails and everything were pulled up. Oh my God, my legs are just on fire from walking through all those thorn bushes. And so I'm not sure how long the station lasted. Passenger service again on this line ended in 1956. So I'm not sure how long after that the station stuck around. Again, if you go to my website, you'll see the picture of it. Again, it's not a great picture, but you'll see it. And again, the picture is kind of taken like from this perspective here, kind of almost up on that ridge there, or kind of by the by the highway, and you're kind of looking this way. And so you see station, section house, water tank. All right, so let's keep moving over here. Again, the siding right beside us, you can see the Trans-Canada Highway. The cars going past. We'll talk a little bit more about the highway. So now we also have something happening right here. Oh, look at this. Flanger sign. So this is the flanger sign for that crossing there. You see all the signage is actually gone off of it. You can still make it out. Oh my God, my legs are just from walking through those thorns. All right, so now we need to talk about this place. So this is actually very much tied in with the history of the railway, because the place that you see right here was actually built by the railway. So this is now a privately owned property. I believe it's owned by a First Nations group. but for many years in more recent history, this used to be known as the Royal Windsor Lodge, and I'll talk a little bit more about the name. Try to yell over the traffic here. So what happened is that this spot, and you're going to see more of this, we saw that on Pidgetawabik Bay, we're going to see more of that on Orient Bay as we go to the south. This is just an absolutely beautiful place, and you're going to hear me say that a lot. So what happened is when Canadian Northern built the line, they were kind of worried a little bit about the profitability. So what they wanted to do is they wanted to capitalize on the beautiful natural environment here. I mean, basically we're just adjacent to Lake Nipigon. Lake Nipigon is just kind of to the north, to the northwest over there, and so basically they decided that this place was going to be kind of the outlet to get into Lake Nipigon, right? And so you basically have this beautiful little spot here. Lake Nipigon's not too far away, so what we're going to do is we're going to build a lodge. So they built a 25 to 30 guest lodge, and I'll put some stuff up on here as we're talking. And so it was known as the Nipigon Lodge. And so it opened in the summer of 1960, and there was a lot of kind of well, there was a lot of advertising and things like that, and so the idea is that they were trying to attract, you know, tourists, fishermen, hunters, basically people who come to this sort of unspoiled area. The Nipigon River, which is kind of to the west of us here, at the time was one of the best trout fishing rivers anywhere in this part of the continent. Actually, I think the world record, or the record for North America, I think, trout came out of the Nipigon River. Anyway, so they built this huge lodge, and basically it was an annex of the Canadian Northern Hotel that was located in Port Arthur at the time, which is known as the Prince Arthur Hotel, which is still standing. And so basically you made reservations through there, and then you came here. And so essentially this was kind of one of the big sort of jewels of Canadian Northern. And then obviously when it became part of Canadian National, it became part of their apparatus as well. And probably the most famous event that happened here was in 1919, when the then heir to the British throne, Prince Edward, the Prince of Wales, he came on a tour of Canada. And one of the places he came to was the Nipigon Lodge. So basically, I think he took a train to Nipigon and then came north. And then, so there are photographs of him in this area, and there's kind of articles talking about, you know, how he was met by the, you know, the dignitaries at the station, and then they walked into the lodge. The lodge was somewhere kind of in the middle here. The lodge is no longer here. The lodge actually burned down in the 1970s, which is kind of very tragic. And so from here, the prince eventually made his way up into Lake Nipigon and then down the Nipigon River, and that was all part of his 1919 tour. So what ended up happening was Canadian National, this truck traffic is driving me crazy here. The Canadian National hung on to this for a bunch of years, and then eventually they sold it, and it kind of went from one owner to the next. Eventually, the name was changed from the Nipigon Lodge to the Royal Windsor Lodge, and the reason why the name was changed was Windsor is the name of the royal family, the House of Windsor. And so basically, when Prince Edward, who very briefly became king but then abdicated the throne, and you can read that whole story, he basically, his title was the I can't, oh, it escapes me now, was it the Duke of Windsor? I think that's what his sort of title became, because he had abdicated the throne. I'll put it up on the screen. I can't remember now. So many things coursing through my head. And so that's why they changed this name to the Royal Windsor Lodge. And it continued operating up until 2017, when the last owner passed away. And then it kind of sat here for a while. And then, as far as I know, at some point last year, it was purchased. And again, I believe it's now owned by a First Nations group. Okay, so what we're going to do, a lot to talk about right here. Like I said, it's a very busy episode. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be heading our way to the south here. We're going to be sort of briefly turning to the east, and we're going to have some problems with the sun. And so what I did, I was here yesterday, and I actually recorded this piece from here to the next big stop down the line, which is known as Cove Inlet. And so what we're going to do is we're going to reuse that footage. We're going to use that footage from here to there.